Good evening, everyone. I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight for this special session. I'll ask the clerk to announce the meeting and call the roll.
A special session is being held on Thursday, April 10th, 2014 at 5 o'clock p.m. in the Commission Chambers regarding Code of Ethics, Charter Ordinance discussion, and Healthy Campus presentation. Immediately following will be an executive session in the ninth floor conference room regarding labor negotiations. Roll call. Maddox.
Here.
Kane. Markley.
Here.
Walters. Philbrook.
Here.
Walker. Townsend. McKiernan. Mugia.
Here.
Holland.
Here. All right, thank you very much. We have done a series of discussions on a variety of topics. The Commission has asked for a number of discussions, and we have worked diligently to work through that through the last several months. And pleased to say that I believe we've addressed every issue that the Commission has brought up. So tonight, there was a request for ethics and for charter. And so we're going to have that discussion tonight. We appreciate all of those of you who came tonight. So what I want to do is each different program has been requested by different commissioners. The ethics were requested by Commissioner Maddox, Commissioner Murguia, and Commissioner Walker. And so, Commissioner Maddox, I'll ask you to lead off. You had requested this and just want to invite you to start us off tonight.
Well, thank you, Mayor. Appreciate the opportunity, but I'm learning and I'm ready to listen to this conversation like everybody else. So I would rescind my opportunity. I just want to listen and learn.
Okay. All right, Commissioner Murguia, let's start with the ethics piece.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I thought the way this was gonna work was that there was gonna be a short presentation by our ethics administrator and our administrative judge about kind of how ethics works.
I saw your email just this time last week, that had requested that. I think we do have a written report from them that was sent out today. And here's my piece. Well,
This day I got it 4:30.
I don't know when it was. Here's my issue, though. I mean, let's be clear. You asked for this meeting 6 months ago, and 5 business days before the meeting, we get a pretty comprehensive list of requests for information. And so if we'd had more time, I think we could have spent more time with folks getting that information to you. So this has been on the calendar for a long time. And in fact, I put this on the calendar at our strategic plan. So we knew this date was coming. And with 5 business days notice, I would say I'm very pleased that we had an opportunity to get a response in that time frame.
No, I think the response was great that we got back. I did have a chance to review it. We did get it late, but I did get a chance. I still have requested, though, that just like all topics that we bring forward, that our ethics administrator is able to present kind of like the framework of ethics, especially since we have so many new commissioners.
Okay, now everyone's been trained in the ethics training, right? All the commissioners go through that, and I believe that ethics framework is given at the ethics training. So people have an understanding of that, but you want...
Yeah, if Ms. Benin could just give an overview or presentation of how ethics works and kind of the process, that'd be great. So that everybody's on the same page and everybody understands exactly how it works.
Okay. Ms. Benin, are you willing to step forward and perhaps use the document you presented today as a foundation for that? Can we get that microphone turned up, please? No, it's not. I think it's a mic. Can you give us a test? Just test 2, 3. I'm not hearing it through the system. No. Can we use this microphone that's right here for the assistant to...
Try it again. It still doesn't sound like it's working.
There it comes. There it
Something's
comes.
going on.
I want to make sure the people at home can hear as well.
Sure. Does it sound like it's working? All right.
Okay.
Anyway, we made two presentations, one from the legal department, one from the legislative auditor's office, which I think do set out the entire makeup of the Ethics Commission, the background of the Ethics Code. The Ethics Code, and all the commissioners have had the training, and we verified that. They're given a copy of the code, the specific sections of the code, and I'm not going to read them all out loud today, that deal with the makeup of the Ethics Commission are Section 2, 254. A copy of this code is posted on the UG Ethics website and is available to all members of the public. And the section dealing with the Ethics Administrator is Section 2255. Essentially, the Ethics Commission is an advisory commission made up of 5 individuals. The Ethics Commission and myself as the Ethics Administrator are totally independent from all of you, from the County Administrator, and any of the activities at City Hall. I am selected, as are the Ethics Commissioners, by an ad hoc panel that is made up of Wayne Lampson, the Chief Administrative Judge, the Legislative Auditor, and the District Attorney. There is no input from the Unified Government Commissioners into that process. The Ethics Code governs the Unified Government elected officials, the appointed officials, and the employees of the Unified Government, and the Ethics Commissioners and myself. The makeup is we meet every month. They are advisory. They make recommendations for changes to the Ethics Code. I handle the investigations, and I handle the complaints. That's a brief overview. If there's specific questions, but again, all this was covered in the training.
Okay. Okay, so independent board selected by the chief judge, legislative auditor, and district attorney selects both you and the commission. Okay.
And required, the code is required, as I understand, by the charter ordinance of consolidation. But it can be amended, and the amendments come from this commission with the recommendation. The code says the Ethics Commission shall make recommendations. That doesn't mean you have to accept them or you have to change them.
Okay. Commissioner, is that?
Yeah, I think that's at least that's a start. So I would like to ask some of the questions that were asked in the written document. Ruth has already talked a little bit about how ethics commissioners are selected. Can you talk about a little bit what the criteria to serve on the commission is? Do these people that are serving on the ethics commission that are reviewing these complaints, what is the criteria? Is there any criteria for what the person credentials are?
Yes, and again, that's set out in the letter that we sent out today. We only
If you
got
could
this
just
on
repeat
Monday.
that for the benefit, for the public meeting process, because I don't think the people on television got the letter, and we clearly want to be very open and transparent about what kind of communication is going out.
And I'm happy to read it in. Actually, it's the
Yeah.
ad hoc committee that does that selection of criteria, so it's not really my area. But the question was, what are the criteria to serve on the commission? Section 2254 of the Code of Ethics states as follows. The purpose of the Ethics Commission shall be to ensure proper implementation of the Code of Ethics and to review and report on any and all other violations of the Code of Ethics. The Ethics Commission is responsible for conducting meetings no less than semi-annually and deliberating on ethical issues and rendering advisory opinions to the Ethics Administrator. The Ethics Commission shall be composed of 5 members residing in the county appointed by the Ad hoc Ethics Commission panel. 2 of the commissioners shall be appointed to serve 2-year terms, and this is the start of it, so I'm going to skip ahead. They basically serve 1 consecutive 4-year term. The panel shall select 1 member of the Ethics Commission to serve as chairperson of the commission for a 2-year renewable term. Any action of the Ethics Commission shall require a quorum of 3 members. In selecting the candidates, and I think this is where you're directed, Commissioner, for membership on the commission, the panel shall establish procedures relating to selection, which at a minimum provides as follows. Acceptance of letters or applications of interest from anyone, eliminations from consideration persons convicted of a felony or crime or moral turpitude, and persons appointed to the Ethics Commission shall be of good moral standing and reputation. Persons appointed to the Ethics Commission shall have no conflicts of interest as defined in Section 2258, and that's of the Code, and shall be broadly representative of the diverse populace of Wyandotte County. And that's basically, in terms of the committee can more address the minimum policy provided.
And all of those individuals that are appointed to the Ethics Commission can serve 1 non-consecutive 4-year term?
Yes.
And then, so if I serve 4 years and then I was out for a year, could I come back then? Is that the and serve another 4-year term?
Yes.
Okay. So, you know, Wyandotte County is a pretty small town where everybody seems to sort of know one another. So I'm curious, when a complaint comes in front of the commission, is there a recusal process for some of those ethics commissioners, if there's a history with that person?
And, well, yes, and again, as is outlined in the letter, and let me find that one, because the ethics commissioners and myself, even though the general populace is not under the UG Ethics Code, they are under the code, so they are subject to the same recusal as all the UG commissioners set out in section 25259. That if a quorum can't be met, they wouldn't have to recuse themselves. But quite frankly, recusal is seldom necessary because they're an advisory commission that renders advisory opinions on matters relating to the code. They aren't ruling on that commission violations.
What, if they're just an advisory group of people and they don't really have any training or history in ethics, and they provide you with an opinion, how do they base their opinion? How are they guided through that process?
How that occurs is, quite frankly, they don't provide the opinions. They ask me, or people ask me for the advisory opinions. I prepare the advisory opinions in conjunction with legal if necessary, and provide it to them for their approval if necessary. On everything, some things are verbal opinions by my office. They're required to make sure those opinions get out and the investigations get conducted, but they don't actually do that themselves. They are purely advisory. We meet once a month.
But what do
I give them a monthly report. I need to interrupt you, Commissioner. I give them a monthly report, but I can't name names or give out confidential information. So I tell them the number of complaints that have come in, the general nature of those, and the type of advisory opinions. Now, everyone can get the advisory opinions if they want them by making a request to my office to say, do you have any advisory opinion on this topic? I can provide that, but I have to redact it per the code. The code requires that.
Okay, so how do they advise you? Just, you have a dialogue back and forth with them?
Yeah, I just, as a representative sample, of the public, I simply say to them, this is what the proposal is, or this is the advisory opinion I provided, that this is how this section of the code. We also keep all the opinions and try to act with precedent and along with those lines.
Right, and then just for clarity, my last question is there currently a due process
With respect to what, I'm sorry.
with an ethics violation? If someone's given an ethics violation, is there due process involved with appealing that decision or being heard on that particular decision?
Again, in terms of an appeal, and legal answered part of it because I don't deal with it. In the situations with an employee, there have been cases where I've made an ethics violation, but almost all of those involve operational issues. Employees, and it's set out in the legal section letter, they have certain rights under the HR policies. Those have never been used in my cases because the employee has generally agreed with whatever discipline was imposed. In terms of elected and appointed officials, there's not technically a, quote, due process in the sense that unless it's a public censure, which was only put in 2009, it's all private anyway. But we have followed the practice of before we issue anything, we'll tell them we are going to go ahead and issue it, but we at least give them an opportunity to review what we're going to present and respond, but we don't have to accept their response. But there's not any appeal procedure under the UG Ethics Code. By that, like a hearing to a higher body or anything like that.
So, just for clarity, it's not like what we traditionally think of in a court of law.
The example would be, it's not like a municipal traffic court where you always have the automatic right to appeal it over to district court. There is no setup in the code like that.
So once you and the Ethics Commission, on your own, after your investigation, make a decision about what happens, then there is no way for that person to, other than send you a letter or stand in front of you and to be heard to appeal that process or appeal that decision.
Yes and no, as I just indicated, in terms of the employees, they have whatever, and Jody can address that, they have the right to appeal in some manner any decision with reference to them. Again, in terms of elected officials, now in terms of a private censure, that's the whole idea, it's a private censure, so you wouldn't really want a right of appeal for it. But otherwise, yes, they would appear, but again, the commission is not voting on this. They're simply giving their approval or concurrence. It's the legislative auditor, the checks and balances, the system is, I investigate, I make the recommendation, and the legislative auditor has to sign off on it.
Okay, well, just for clarity, here in the document that we were provided, it says very clearly from our legal counsel is that no, there is not due process established right now in our code of ethics.
And again, I'm just distinguishing the employees, because I think that does provide due process. Maybe your question was geared to the commissioners, I can't remember, I'm sorry.
No, I think it covered all of them. It just said that there was not due process. Okay, so for now, that's all my questions, and then I'll probably have more, but I'm gonna go ahead and pass it on to whoever else has questions.
All right, Commissioner Walker,
Due process was my,
can you turn on your microphone, please, sir?
due process was the first issue that I had. I'll state it bluntly, I think that a person accused of an ethics violation before a determination is made should have an opportunity to be heard and evidence presented. That may not change your procedure, your investigation. It may not be a right that an individual chooses to exercise because they perhaps know that they are guilty of that particular offense. But before discipline is issued, I feel strongly that every person, employee, commissioner, anyone covered by it, is entitled to due process. And I think the code needs to be recommended to reflect that clearly.
And I don't disagree with you, other than the method or manner needs to be discussed, because the expenses would be great if you were gonna give a formal public hearing on those matters. We have, to the extent the code allows, provided, as they say, in terms of meeting with the individual to present them with it. But yes, there's no means for them to appeal it if we say we're still doing it.
I would note, I have been told that we are one of 2 cities out of 625 that have a separate ethics code, that other cities are covered by the state ethics code. Is that correct?
We received a request on that, I think, from Commissioner Walters. We're looking into that. I don't know. My understanding is there are more, I think even in Kansas, but I don't want to go on the record saying that. I know, well, I think Kansas City, Missouri, or Jackson County has a code. Now, whether it's in with their other creation codes, I don't know. But we'll check on that. I simply don't know.
It's a factual question.
Yeah, I don't know.
I will say that in general, I'm very pleased with the way the ethics process has worked. I have, in line with comments, I think that I've noted due process. There is a phrase in there called prestige of office. And I'm greatly troubled by that particular phrase because it is not defined. We've had 3 ethics administrators. I've been here for all 3 of them in one capacity or the other. There are different, to me, there are differences in how that term is viewed. I would like to see specificity. Let me give you an example. I certainly don't believe that a commissioner should go out and, for pecuniary gain or consideration, utilize his title in an advertisement for a car dealer or some other financial enterprise. I am troubled by the fact that while you're a commissioner, the individual and you are inseparable. I mean, the title and you are inseparable. When you're asked to speak at a particular group that is fundraising and you're the guest speaker, which appropriately is most often the mayor, is that not prestige of office?
Yes, but there's an ordinary and customary constituent services exception. And I think those type
So
of things would fall
it's
within that.
so then we have to define what those are.
Yes. And that's where I spend most of my time on that phrase, or in that section.
So if I write a letter for a student to be accepted to law school and sign it as commissioner,
That would be unacceptable.
and can you explain to me why that would be?
Because it looks like the entire unified government is supporting that individual. You can do it on your own letterhead. There's no reason why you'd need to use your commissioner title for that individual.
I think that we're not going to agree on that. And I think what we need is an acceptable definition of what is either prestige of office or ordinary and acceptable constituent services.
I'm not
So it's
disagreeing.
clear. I think in talking with my fellow commissioners, there is a variety of opinion on what that term means, and rather than have to guess, I don't think it would be too hard to fashion an acceptable definition.
The other thing I might mention is there are always advisory opinions that are available to any of you if you have that issue arise, that the code specifically allows for, so if you do end up doing something, and I've said, yeah, that's okay, it's not a violation. I forgot to mention that in terms of the setup of the code and what I do.
Well, I think it's the commission's duty to define those terms and how they're used, ultimately. And certainly if the Ethics Commission had a recommendation of defining it, then we could work from that, or we can do our own. The third is this issue of, and it probably applies to the commissioners only. It would seem that as a board member of any organization, uncompensated, not where you're paid, or where you accrue some consideration for that, we are required to recuse ourselves, or at least we are acting as though we are required to recuse ourselves. We are then faced with the dilemma that either we resign our board membership in any organization that we belong to, so that we can engage in the fiction then that when we vote for something in that organization, there is no bias or prejudice. However, as a member of an organization, a commissioner is not required to recuse himself from that particular issue if it has something to do with that organization. I understand that if there is pecuniary gain from serving on a board or other consideration, that should be the case. But I'll use a phrase. I believe that under the current, and let me, if I'm correct in my recollection, it was not always that way.
Well, there's been no changes to the conflict of interest section in that regard. In the recusal regard,
Well,
it's the same as it
there were
was.
commission members that sat up here and retained a board status on organizations and voted for projects that organization brought forth and did not recuse themselves.
And I came in 2008. I
I
don't
know,
know what
I
occurred
know.
before, but
I
that
understand.
provision has been in since '97.
It may be only my opinion, but I think that that particular aspect of recusal needs to be reviewed.
Do you have any suggestions for an in-between, or you simply don't want to have to recuse at all?
Well, certainly,
What about
I mean,
disclosure?
clearly, one line in the sand would be if you're making money off of the deal, then you shouldn't be voting on a particular topic. I think we would all agree to that. How distant do you have to be from the issue? It seems to me to be a very difficult thing to define. To me, it should be, a clear, bright line. If you're making money out of that particular organization as a board member, see, I think what it does, it takes the commission and marginalizes them to some degree in the community. I think that what happens is that you're forced to remove yourself from activities that you've been engaged in and that for whatever reason you're interested in. And what we should be promoting is a continuing dialogue by all the commissioners in all the various organizations throughout our community. And while you can go and appear, I don't believe that to be effective. I think it's counterproductive to do that. And the reality is, if you're a board member and now you become a commissioner and you resign, we're engaging in a fiction that if a person had a bias because they were on the board, that bias goes away now because now they're just a member of the organization. What is the purpose to that? Those are the three areas that concern me.
Okay. Commissioner Maddox.
Thank you. I think I may also need someone to the podium. I've got a few questions. The interesting thing about the ethics code is that it often speaks to how it is to operate, but it does not give a deep analysis of the actions of key individuals such as the ethics administrator, the legislative auditor, all of those people who were involved with it. So I just had a few questions for you, Ruth, and Mr. Wiss. And by the way, I did do research about the ethics department and at the state level as well. When I spoke to the League of Kansas Municipalities, I was told that there are 627 cities within the state of Kansas, and 2 of them have a local ethics department. The rest of them adhere to the state ethics department. There is a state ethics department that actually regulates the local municipalities. So I wanted to put that out there because 627 cities in the state of Kansas, and only 2 of them, including ourselves, have a local ethics department. I wanted to know what is the role of an ethics administrator? I know it speaks to it a little bit.
I thought I covered it when I gave the presentation, and it's covered in the training. I provide training for the employees, the elected officials, and appointed officials.
Can you step
I
a
do
little
the-
closer to the mic?
I do the investigations for the commission, I write the advisory opinions, and I handle the administrative affairs for the Ethics Commission.
Okay.
It's set out in the code also at section 2255. It says specifically what it is I do.
Okay.
Right side. 255.
Okay. I noticed that you said investigation, things of that nature. I wanted to speak a little bit about the censor that was added in 2009. There's still a lot of cloudiness around it. I wanted to know, what is the function of the censor and who actually writes the censor up?
Censure that was added was the public censure. Before that, there was always a private one. The
Okay.
purpose of it is to make the elected official, because that's the only 2 things that we have for an elected official. The public one's the only thing that's publicly done. I mean, we can do slap on the hands, meetings, everything else, but that's why the public censure was put in 2009. Its purpose is to identify the issues. I'm sorry, what was the tail end of your question? I'm sorry.
I know. I asked who writes up
Right, okay.
the public censor.
I initially, whether it's a complaint received, whatever has occurred, I do an investigation, but in doing that investigation, if you remember when we had the training, I gave you all a chart that showed all the avenues that I have, like legal department and legislative auditor's office and the district attorney to turn to help me in that investigation. I put together a proposal. I then make the recommendation to the legislative auditor, again, the checks and balances.
Okay.
And he has to actually issue the letter of public censure. And it's the same way with the private censure letter.
Okay.
You never see it because it's private.
So the legislative auditor, is he an employee of the city?
Of the unified government, yes.
Yes, sir. Well, in regards to that, I just wanted to say, I know that it's wrote up by the ethics administrator and it's okayed by the county legislative auditor. There should never be an employee that can put together a census or a document on an elected official. Why? Because elected officials during budget season, we make all kind of decisions in regards to employees. It just doesn't add up in that regards. We have to make decisions in regards to employees, but then in turn in the actual code of ethics, the employee is given the power to put a document together and issue it to the public on the same individual that has to make those decisions. It just seems a little cloudy. But I wanted to finish because, Ruth, I heard you say that you do investigation. Or do you have qualifications or documents where you're a legal investigator, or do you have any of those certificates or certifications that make you a qualified investigator?
I have a Juris Doctorate. I'm a practicing lawyer. I have the avenues of the police department, the legal department of the unified government, and the legislative authority.
No, I'm asking, do you have any certifications that make you an investigator
No.
who can investigate things that are brought forth? Because in a department, it seems like if a police is an investigator, he has a certificate in that. He's went to school for that. He's taught to do that. And I'm asking you, with the position you have, do you have a certificate that qualifies you to be an investigator who can take documents, investigate them, and issue them to the public as a fact? Because that's what happens when you issue a censor. You send it to the public as it's a fact. So I'm asking you, do you have the certification to do that?
I will state again, in terms of a certification, I do not have one.
Okay.
It does not mean I am not capable of conducting an investigation
Okay.
with the resources I have.
Okay. Well, it seems that when we have a department, we don't just take a resident out of the community and put them over internal affairs. You know, those are documents that have to be qualified. Those individuals have to be qualified to take those documents and move them forward. So I wanted to know that, and I put it out there that anytime an employee is given of the unified government is given the power to put out a public censor on an elected official, that's not good government, because that is an employee and the elected official is put in office by voters. It's two different playing fields.
Commissioner, you make a good point there. That is why my position is appointed by the district court judges of the state of Kansas.
Okay.
Report to you.
I'm a UG employee, however, I'm not appointed by anyone sitting up here
Right.
that approves a budget process or anything else.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
All right.
Is that all, Mr. Mayor?
Commissioner Walker, did you want to respond to that comment, or did you?
Now, I had one other
Okay, we'll come back to you then.
request that needs to be considered.
Commissioner Markley.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank both of you for your comments. I actually don't have any questions for you, so you can take a break. Hopefully you're off the hook for a little while at least. I just have sort of some comments for discussion, and I think I appreciate Commissioner Walker's comments. I think he addressed a couple of the more technical issues that have been of concern, and Ms. Benin's comment, I think, was illustrative of that she spends most of her time interpreting a couple of different phrases, and that maybe dealing with those phrases is a good way to eliminate some of the confusion that I think we're seeing. But I want to talk a little about sort of the big picture questions that I feel like we need to address. So in speaking with someone who was on the very first Ethics Commission, he said that the main purpose was to create a sense of trust as we were transitioning into a new form of government, and I think that was a fabulous step. We were transitioning to a new form of government. There were some areas that were very concerned about that transition and felt that there were ethical concerns, so this commission was created to deal with that. I do feel like we're in a different place today, and that what we really want to do now is create an even broader culture of openness, fairness, and ethical standards. And so I think the question we should be asking ourselves is, does this system do that in the best way possible, or are there other options for how we can move forward? And I'm just going to throw out some things that have been sort of running through my head. So we've discussed the fact that there is a state ethics commission that's available to us, and our mayor has had a huge emphasis on open government, which I think is a huge step toward higher ethical standards for all of our employees and elected officials. And when data's out there in the open, it just makes it easier for all of the people in the public to see what we're doing and to know that there aren't secret shenanigans going on. So kudos to Mayor Holland for his emphasis on that. One thing we've discussed with respect to that is hiring some employee that would handle our open data, but as we all know, our budget is very tight. So as I said, I'm just throwing out ideas here. Would it make sense for us at this stage, as we're trying to open up our government so that everyone can see our ethical practices, to take the money that we're spending on our internal ethics commission, spend that on hiring an open data employee who could manage that process, and use the state ethics commission to manage the ethics issues that are happening at that level? Like I said, it's just an idea to throw out there. What I'm trying to think of, again, is just what options do we have that will further our ethics goals? I think our commission was an important start because of where it came in our transition to a new form of government. and maybe it's still the best way. I just think we're at a point, we have a new administrator, and we're looking at all these different budgeting options. We're talking about open data. I feel like we're sort of at a convergence of rivers here where it's a good time for us to consider whether this is the best avenue or whether there are other avenues that can further our goals to higher ethical standards, to fairness, and to open government. So those are just my comments. Like I said, sort of big picture compared to what we heard from Commissioner Walker, but just some things to think about.
Commissioner Walker,
This may be directed to Judge Lamson.
can you speak directly into the microphone, please, sir?
This may be directed to Judge Lamson. Couldn't pass letting you have a chance to talk. One of the things that was brought up, and perhaps it's more of a suggestion, maybe you do it anyway, and that's why I'm going to ask it. The way the process reads, we accept applications for the Ethics Commission, and then we make selections based on whatever process you do to vet the applicants. I suppose I would like to see a more robust recruitment effort. There are many fine, nonpartisan, ethically outstanding people in this community, and I'm not sure all of them apply. In fact, I'm quite sure that a lot of them don't apply, and not for any particular reason. Maybe my question is, do you recruit? Do you pick up the phone and call somebody you know that you think would be good and say you ought to put your application in?
Commissioner, this last time, we've recognized that same issue as being a problem as we've gone through it at different times. Sometimes we've had just a very few applicants. This last time, we contacted several ministers and other individuals in the community and asked them to mention this in their congregations, and we had several applicants. Tom, what did we have? 12? A dozen applicants. We then took those applicants and we ran their criminal backgrounds. That the ordinance requires that they not be felons. We also ran some credit background to see whether or not they had some lawsuits against any of you or against the UG or against someone that might be a problem. We contacted references that were provided by them. Mr. Gorman and Mr. West and I interviewed I think we narrowed it down to 6 that we interviewed, and then we made our selections from that. So this last time we had better luck. Now, I concur with you that I felt that there was a lot of people out there that we could get them in to apply, but you know, when you advertise for a non-paying job that meets once a month to talk about commissioners, there's just not a whole lot of us that would spend our time doing that.
I can't imagine that.
You know, and
Well,
so
I would encourage, I guess the question is, do we need to put some requirement of recruitment, some language that,
well,
as people pass from the scene, that down the road, that, I like what you just said you did.
I mean, some of the...
I would like to see 12 to 15 applicants a time be vetted and narrowed down.
We have discussed, but rejected it, asking all of you to submit names, because we don't really want anybody on the Ethics Commission that's tied to any of you. Now, we've had, in our interview process, that's not always been the case in some of the people we've selected, but that's an attempt that we make a lot of work towards trying not to have. So we were trying to come at, you know, we don't have a budget to advertise it in the Star.
I understand, Judge. I, for myself, would not like to be referring names to you.
I don't want any of your referrals. We're on the same page on that.
I think that you're better off using your own judgment rather than elected officials' judgments. But I'm just one vote. Other people may feel differently.
We have historically looked at, when we talk to these folks, the thing that we're trying not to do is have any of them with animosity toward any of you, or even favoritism towards any of you. And let's be honest, we don't get applicants that came in and say, oh, I want to take care of that employee. You guys are the ones that's out there on the block. You're the ones that the whole process, when consolidation came on, was a worry. We didn't not trust our employees. We didn't trust our leaders, our commissioners. And I was on both sides of the street on this. So you can't, I knew it as well as anybody in this room.
Well,
So
I agree with you.
that's why this came the way it was. And I would only speak, Commissioner Markley, to your comment, I'm not sure that we're as far along as you suggest. I still get a lot of language from people saying that they don't trust any of us. And the States Commission, and I could be wrong, Commissioner Maddox, is appointed by Governor Brownback. I'm not sure that he has the best interest in my community.
Point of order, please. We would ask that, though Judge Lamson is eminently entertaining, we would ask that you refrain from applauding for either for or against comment. We do maintain the decorum of our meetings, so we would ask you to please refrain from clapping in the future. Thank you. Commissioner Kane.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, I didn't have a dog in a fight until some former elected people were questioning some of us commissioners, which I don't like, I think is wrong, and it stirred up a hornet's nest. I'm kind of like Angela. I think we've got past, what happened in the past, and maybe we haven't. And I got to agree with you about the governor. But Carolyn Williams is the executive director. I called her. She said, you're the only one. There might be another one. She hooked me up with a gal with the Kansas counties. She said there might be another one in Johnson County. And as the mayor always said, we're looking for low-lying fruit. Well, there's, $58,000 sitting right there. But when every time a commissioner has brought something up, especially with this commission, we've all come up and said our piece, whatever it was, voted, and went home. We didn't have somebody from the outside trying to stir things up to bring people here, because, you can feel the heat tonight. You're looking at us, and I can tell some of you really don't like us, and that's okay. You're stuck with me for 3 years. But the thing is we have to move on. When Village West was built, it upset some people, but we moved on. When the racetrack was built, and there was a family that was homesteaded out there, and they got moved, we moved on. The casino is built, and we need to move on. So I say, it's 2014, it's another day, and we need to do something different. And I have never had trouble with the folks. I talk to Tom on a regular basis. I ask him a lot more questions than sometimes I ask staff. And the way Carolyn Williams said there would be a contact person in the city, well, I think we already had that. And every time, I hate to ask him a question at where we weren't, probably shouldn't have asked him a question, because I want to make sure I don't make mistakes. Because I don't believe anybody up here wants to make a mistake. We wouldn't be here if we wanted to make mistakes, but we want to represent the people and do the best we can. But it doesn't help when the outside folks that are no longer elected stir up the trouble. And that's just the bottom line.
Commissioner Murguia.
Thank you, Mayor. Commissioner Kane, I greatly appreciate your comments. I really, though, want to build on what Commissioner Markley has already talked about. I personally want to increase our ethical standards that we have here. Right now, I think you all are aware that what we do now in the way of enforcing our ethics is we react to situations that occur, and we only react to things like crime scenes. We wait till something really drastic happens to react to it. I'd like to see an ethical government where it actually becomes part of our culture, the day-to-day operations. I want to see ethics implemented in how we hire people, how we promote people. How about how we treat people with dignity and respect? How about a little bit of that throughout all of our policies, not just a few? It is pretty clear to this entire commission that I'll just give one example without stirring up all other kinds of things, that there has been some questions about rulings and the difference of opinions depending on who the ruling is for. For example, There was a commissioner that currently is a commissioner that requested to be in an advertisement for Pittsburgh State University. That commissioner was denied the ability to be in that ad as a commissioner. Pittsburgh State was simply trying to promote their graduates and say, look what you can do if you graduate from Pittsburgh State University. That person was denied that opportunity. However, another commissioner asked, can I be in an ad for Donnelly College? And that commissioner was allowed to be in the ad for Donnelly College. So the impression that leaves is, I agree with Judge Lamson. I think the outside world, when we react that way to ethics and we treat people like we treat them, that the outside world doesn't trust anybody. And I think Wyandotte County wants to see every aspect of the unified government be handled in an upstanding, ethical manner. And I really think, given what a small town, sort of speak, KCK is and Wyandotte County is, I really do believe the best way to ensure that there is no bias and there's no political gamesmanship going on, that we leave that to the state and the state ethics system. As to when a criminal act occurs and commissioners and local or employees commit criminal acts, that's for our legal system to deal with, not for an ethics commission. And in closing, I would just say that we are giving our community a false sense of hope when they think our ethics commission has the authority to do anything about issues that matter to them. Because they don't have any authority. They don't have the authority to remove commissioners from office. Commissioners don't have the authority to remove other commissioners from office. So that is a legal issue that needs to be handled by legal people. Judges need to do that. So that's my input. I really believe for what we're paying on an annual basis from year to year, we can do exactly what Mayor Holland has been suggesting since he got in office. The best way to combat unethical governments, unethical behavior, is to be an open and transparent government.
All right. One of the things that I understand, and I would ask Mr. Wiss, can I ask you to respond to a couple questions just to help me clarify? By the way, since Mr. Wiss is coming forward, I want to thank Judge Lamson, Mr. Wiss, our legislative auditor, our district attorney, Jerry Gorman, for being here. I want to thank Ruth Benin, our ethics administrator, for being here. We also have a number of other folks who are here. Former Mayor Marinovich is here. Sheriff Don Ash is here. Senator Haley is here. Chief Hansen with our police department is here. And former Commissioner and former Senator Kelly Coltel is here. So I want to thank all of the elected and former elected officials who are here tonight. Mr. Wiss, my question is, in terms of the Ethics Commission and changes to the ethics, the Code of Ethics, is it correct that any commissioner could write a letter to you or to the ethics administrator and request a review of a particular issue?
Yes, we could present that then to the Ethics Commission for discussion.
Okay. Is it also true in terms of, my understanding is the ethics administrator's position as well as your position and the Ethics Commission itself are a part of the charter, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
I believe that's correct. Jody could speak to that perhaps better.
Repeat the question.
The ethics administrator's position, the Ethics Commission, and the legislative auditor, are all of those positions written into the charter?
Not the ethics administrator, but the legislative auditor and the ethics commission are.
Okay. And is the legislative auditor then hires the ethics administrator? The ethics administrator works for the legislative auditor, is that correct?
Oh,
That's correct.
Yes.
I utilize the ad hoc commission to interview applicants for that position, but in the end, it's my decision to.
And that's a
hire
part
that
of your
person.
budget, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Those are the questions that I had. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'd like to address a few of the issues. what I've heard tonight are some requests by commissioners for the Ethics Commission particularly to review some policies. And what I want to encourage the commissioners to do is to draft those requests and make a formal request. Any of you are welcome to do that to the Ethics Commission, and I would send it to Tom West, to the legislative auditor, and make that formal request. The things I've heard tonight, an appeal process. Mr. Walker, you raised that question about whether or not there should be an appeal process.
I did not. I raised the issue of due process. An appeal
Okay. Oh,
follows due process.
so appeal's a
I'm
part of
not-
due process.
The only entity that would be appropriate to hear an appeal would be the commission. I don't see how it would go to the district court. Perhaps I'm wrong, Judge. So I don't want the commission hearing appeals. I'm personally saying I don't want to hear appeals from every employee or fellow commissioner that has an ethics problem and have to rule on it.
Okay,
So I just want,
misunderstood. I misspoke then.
I just want due process for someone to have a chance to be heard before they're hammered.
Okay, so thank you for the clarification. Due process. I also heard some specificity around prestige of office. I also heard a request for a review of recusal from unpaid board members. And I also heard maybe you had a question about recruitment, but not necessarily, do we want to have some language in there about what a valid applicant pool is? There has to be more than 2 applicants or something of that nature. I don't know, but those are the things that some of the things that I've heard. I would think any of those could be submitted directly to Tom Wiss, our legislative auditor, and a request made for a review by him and by the Ethics Commission to see if those are things that they want to do. And I would expect that if a commissioner sent such a letter, that they would get a response, yes or no, in terms of how that review went. That would be a valid expectation. So, hold on just a second. So, the other thing that I think is important, and Commissioner Walker, you and I have talked about this in terms of recusal from unpaid boards. I was on the board of Mount Carmel Redevelopment Corporation before I was elected commission, and upon election, I immediately stepped down from the board, and I told Bishop Sims that because I was elected as a commissioner and they run the Willa Gill Center, that it would not be valid for me to stay on that board if the commission were voting for funding for a program that they were operating on the unified government's behalf. And my reason for stepping down was that while I wasn't being paid by Mount Carmel, I had fiduciary responsibility to Mount Carmel under the law of the state of Kansas, that as a board member, I'm responsible for their financial wherewithal and the liability that goes with that. So my decision was that I needed to step down, and that was, I didn't ask for an opinion from the ethics administrator. That just felt right to me, that if I have fiduciary responsibility over a board or an organization, and I have sworn fiduciary responsibility for the unified government, that my voting on issues relative to both would be inappropriate. So, and so you and I have talked about this, and we disagree, which is fine. And I think the issue that you've raised is you're on ONDA's board, and it's a non-paid position. And
I'm on a number of boards.
You're on a number of boards, but the one that's come up is you recently, just I think last meeting, recused yourself. There's a development that ONDA was a part of, and you and Commissioner Murguia recused yourselves from that, per that piece. So I think that recusal of even unpaid board members who have legal fiduciary responsibility in the state of Kansas for that organization is valid. But I think you could ask the legislative auditor and the Ethics Commission to review that policy as well, and to see whether or not that is appropriate. I also want to say, I appreciate the commitment to open government. I think that's big. I think having our data together and having the ability to gather our data, the longer I'm in this position, I see how hard it is often for a large organization to get their data to a point not just where it's public, to where we can use it ourselves. And that's a big issue. And we have multiple platforms across multiple parts of our organization. And gathering data is critical. I think that is a fundamental need that we have just for effectiveness of government. I don't share the correlation it has to the ethics administrator. I would be fine if we were the only city, not only in the state of Kansas, but in the nation, that had an ethics board and an ethics administrator. I think ethics speak to a higher level than just what's legal, but what is ethical. And ethical is a different standard. Legal is impropriety. Ethical is the appearance of impropriety. And I believe that differentiation for the unified government, for its employees, its board members, and for this commission to be above the appearance of impropriety is a valid and important role that our ethics administrator, our ethics commission, and our legislative auditor provide. I like their independence. I think it was very smart that the city, when the people voted in the charter to implement an ethics commission and legislative auditor, they made it very clear that we just didn't want a good government. We wanted an ethical government. And that standard is a standard that I do not want to back off of. It's a standard that I think we should continue to lead. And if there are other communities in our state that do not have this, I think they need to get on board, have a locally administered ethics board that's doing a closer watch, because you can say the state can handle it. If there are 627 cities in the state of Kansas, 627 cities, and I can say our commission meets every month, and our legislative auditor is busy, and our ethics administrator is busy. If the state has 627 other cities that they're looking at, I want to go on record and say, I don't think they're going to pay the level of attention and the level of detail that the citizens of this community expect from ethics day in and day out. And that's why I support the ethics administrator's position. That's why I support the ethics commission, and that's why I support the legislative auditor. Those built-in checks and balances are a part of what makes the democratic experiment in America work. I value it. I'll fight for it. I believe in it. And I think we need to keep it and continue to support it in our decisions. Commissioner Walker.
Well, Mayor, that's a hard speech to follow.
Well, you need not.
The implication being that all of us are somehow desirous of lowering the ethical standards. And I would take great exception with that comment. What that ethics code was not inscribed on tablets and handed down. It was written by people like me who wrote it, the very first one. And it was a process of political negotiation to get agreement from the commissioners on the language or the council at that time. We call for a small change in it, and the walls are tumbling down.
Point of order, Commissioner. I heard the request that by more than one person to eliminate the position of the ethics administrator. Is that correct?
Well, you may have heard it, but you didn't hear it from me.
I did. Was I directing this at you?
Well, I'm talking to you.
Well, I don't know that I was necessarily talking to you. I was making a clear statement about my view of the ethics code and the ethics administrator. I heard a request to substitute our ethics administrator for a different position and do away with that position. And I'm speaking to that. I don't think that's a good idea. And I would advocate strongly to keep that position.
Well, I would be in agreement with you on that.
Thank you. Commissioner Markley.
I wasn't done.
Commissioner Markley, you're going to have to push your light again because I turned it off. Commissioner Walker.
I think that we have given clear direction to them. I'm not going to write a letter as a single commissioner. I would recommend that we get the copy of the transcript of this portion of the meeting done, forwarded to the Ethics Commission, and allow each Ethics Commissioner and the participants to read it. It's very clear what the subjects have been.
That's fine with me. If they will accept that, that's fine with me. Okay?
Thank you.
Are you done, Mr. Walker?
I am.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Commissioner Markley.
Commissioner Walker said part of my comment for me, which is really just, Mayor, I don't think anybody up here is saying they want to lower our ethical standards. I think the question we're asking is our current system actually raising our ethical standards, or is the status quo not getting us any further towards a more ethical government? That's the question we're asking. Nobody's saying we want to lower all the standards and do away with ethics and be an unethical government. We're saying we want to be an ethical government. Is staying with the status quo getting us there, or are there better paths? That's all we're saying.
I understand that. I vehemently disagree, and maybe I should have articulated this more specifically. I vehemently disagree with the notion of eliminating the administrative or the ethics administrator's position in substitute for another. So I will be that specific. Commissioner Murguia.
Well, that's, Commissioner Markley already said, just because someone doesn't like the current system or doesn't think the current system is raising ethics to the level that it needs to be at, doesn't mean they're against ethics. It means you want to increase the level of ethical behavior, not just amongst elected officials and a handful of employees, but establish an entire ethical culture where, as I said, it's not just about reacting to an incident. It's about everything we do, from how we hire people, that they don't need to come from a specific high school or be friends with a specific group of people, or, run with the right crowd or vote for the right person. We're simply suggesting it should be across the board. I would simply add that utilizing the state ethics system simply saves us money and time, and in addition maintains our current level of authority that we have with ethics as it is. Like I said, our ethics administrator can't do anything other than issue someone a censure. And from my understanding, somebody please correct me, but you could issue somebody 20 censures and that's all that would happen. So I would like to see a more robust ethics process with the unified government that hits every single level of what we do. So, Mayor, what I would like to just promote is that ethics are as mutually important to me, and what's important is that it's applied level across a level playing field, and not just to a very specific group of people. And I think the best way to do that is to have an objective party. For example, if you're in a court of law and the judge has a conflict, they usually bring in a judge from somewhere else. We all live together in Wyandotte County. I think when reviewing what goes on in Wyandotte County within our government needs to be reviewed by an unbiased party. And I think the best place to do that is at the state level. Now, all that said, since we have a new administrator, and we've done a really good job collectively reviewing our policies and making sure they're working for us in the way that we're working now, and I think we're all in agreement over that. What a great opportunity, though, to also implement where we meet quarterly with our administrator, who brings forward policy review to make sure that in each one of our policies, there is an ethical component to that policy. Ethics isn't something that sits on the shelf and we react to like a crime scene. That's what I just keep trying to say.
Ma'am, will you please stop calling out? Thank you.
It's the way we live our life. You either live your life ethically or you don't. You don't just react to when somebody does something. It also creates an environment for people to be much more successful if they know exactly every step of the way what is expected of them. So for me, to be clear, I'm trying to raise the standard in Wyandotte County. That's all I'm trying to do. And I'm trying to take it to another level. I think our current system is holding us back.
Commissioner Walters.
I too am for high ethical standards in the government. I did ask the question whether Wyandotte County was the only county that had an ethics administrator, and I guess since no one can find another one in Kansas, I think we may be the only one. So if the 104 other counties have figured out how to do it, I guess you could say that we're exceptional, but I think some people would say it's rather Wyandotte County-like to take the position that we should just take care of everything within our own borders and not ask anyone from the outside to look over our shoulders to see how we're doing things. I too think we should have higher standards than we have now. I think we put our ethics people in a very tough situation when they have to cast judgment on people that they know and people that they interact with and people who they know the sister-in-law of, because it's a small place and there are automatically going to be conflicts with anybody who is in that position. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Kane.
I think Commissioner Walters said it pretty well. I've only got 9 brothers and sisters, so everybody's going to know somebody in my family. Although, Mayor, you say that you oppose this just as much as you oppose it, I'm for it. And you're one vote. So everybody has to remember that. You're one vote, you get to speak last because you got the hammer over there, right? But here's the deal. It is better if somebody outside says, hey, you made a mistake. And it would be easier because they don't know us. And one last comment. It is really, really bad that one high school seems to promote more leaders than other high schools, and some of these commissioners seem a little bit jealous about that, which is Bishop Ward High School, by the way.
All right. So
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion if that's possible.
at a special session, we don't have, we're not set up for motions. There's nothing on the table to vote on. So we usually, when we have an agenda item during our 7 o'clock sessions, then we do have motions, but we're not equipped to do an motion tonight.
Can then I request publicly, just to make sure we're very open and transparent about this, that I'd like to bring forward a motion at the next commission meeting on this particular topic,
Which particular topic?
ethics.
Well, I can certainly take that under consideration. Commissioner Maddox.
Thank you. I'm not going to go tit for tat, and I'm not going to be around the bush. It's not across the board, and the ethics department is biased. Anytime somebody can put a censure together on a commissioner and have a meeting where he does not notify and is issued to a cameraman before it's mentioned to the commissioner, that's bias. And if I'm going to sit in this room and listen to somebody up here tell me that this is good government or that this is some good fossil of work, I'm going to sit here and tell you, no, I'm a victim of that. And I'm going to sit here and tell you I've had a up close, up front engagement with that. When I spoke to the lady at the League of Municipalities, she warned against a local ethics department, especially with a city of 160,000 people, where everybody went to the same high schools, where the buddy-buddy system is in place, where everybody brushes shoulders with each other. Because when different things come forward, it comes from that same avenue. Now, however this is expressed, I don't care. But I've sat up here and listened to 5 or 6 other commissioners say, let's move in another direction. And that's always been the numbers that matter. And I've said in meetings where we've constantly been railroaded when we stand together and we say we don't want something. We're elected by the citizens in Kansas City, Kansas, when they go to the polls. And we have a right to stand for them. And that is not happening. And it's confusing to me because I've been here 3 years and all I've been looking for is good government. And behind the closed doors and under tables, that's where government relies to me. Anytime the cameramans come into an ethics meeting and I watch the county auditor hand us a note to him that he reads to people in the audience on the 5 o'clock news, that's a system. We should never have an employee that takes documents and gives them to the news on elected officials from the people, where gossip goes on in the community and people get on their phones and spread all this kind of stuff. That puts people in a vulnerable situation, and elected officials shouldn't be there. We'll know when good government comes here because you'll hear all the commissioners talking on the same level. You'll hear a mayor that supports us when we say different things. And I'm looking for the day, I've been here 3 years, and I'm looking for the day when I see good government and us all speaking the same language. Thank you.
Commissioner Philbrook.
Well, this is a very interesting evening, and there's a lot of emotions in this, and and it has almost brought me to an emotional point of sadness that we, as the government, are having trouble even respecting ourselves. So, I am sorry that certain people have had bad experiences, and I'm sure in my life I'm going to have some of my own. But I'm not going to relinquish the possibility of having our own ethics people here for multiple reasons. You can call it political, you could call it anything you want to. And the only person this is coming from is me, because I haven't talked to anybody about this. I've thought about it a lot, but I haven't talked to anybody. I think that there are some things that we can change or probably tweak in our system that would make it work a lot better. And I know they're planning on looking at that, because they've already promised us they would, and come back to us and tell us what they've come up with. Because I know they want it to work too, because they don't want us all over them all the time, bugging them about whether they're doing a good job or not. Whether I would sit on an ethics commission myself, are you kidding? No way. I mean, that's not something that I would want to do, because it's a doggone tough thing to do. But you know, folks, we ask people every day who are judges in this community to make decisions about people. And they know them, they know of them, and they have to make upright decisions based on the facts. And that's what we ask our judges to do. Okay? And you guys elected us to make decisions for you in times when you don't have all the facts either. That's why you elect us, to get out, to get as much information as we can, and to make those decisions on those things. And that's why we're all here. That's why we all ran for office. And I respect everybody here at this dais, and I respect you all here too for coming and for having your opinions. That's why this will work, because you'll keep our feet to the fire. And that's what I expect you to do. Thank you.
All right. So I'm seeing no further lights lit on the ethics issue. The second issue that we have on the meeting for tonight is the issue of the charter. And the commissioners that requested this discussion on the charter are Commissioners Murguia and Commissioners Walker. So Commissioner Murguia, I'll ask you to lead off in the discussion of the charter.
That wasn't me, that was Commissioner Walker. I mean, I have comments, but I didn't request changes in the charter. I do have some comments though after Commissioner Walker.
Well, I have the email you sent me said ethics and charter. So did I misunderstand that?
I don't think so. I have comments in regard to it, so absolutely. But I'll defer to Commissioner Walker.
All right.
And I will speak on it, what my concern is. I have one concern.
All right, Commissioner Walker.
I've raised this issue and had this discussion with the mayor, several commissioners privately. I have a boatload of anecdotal stories to tell you why I have reached this point. I think one change in particular needs to be made to the commission. Again, it comes with the idea and in the framework that it is my opinion, after serving a year, and my opinion from observing for many years before, that the inability of a commission to terminate an administrator under any circumstances without the approval of the mayor or the initiation of the mayor is just dead wrong. Now here again, here's a little history for you. Once again, this was not handed down on any tablets. 5 people, 3 Republicans, 2 Democrats, 1 black, 1 Hispanic, 1 woman, were appointed by the governor, and they went through a process. That process is detailed. It was thorough. There was also a retired Army colonel that was their executive director. And they came up with a plan after hearing, I would guess, just about everybody that wanted to speak on the subject, speak on the subject. And in that plan, they made a decision that they would put before the people a plan that included the provision that under no circumstances can the administrator be terminated unless the mayor initiates that process. I don't agree with that burden of proof or burden of persuasion. This isn't anything new. I've had that conviction for a long time. Now, my only issue would be, and there is in the charter itself a provision that the charter can be amended. So it was foreseen that this was not a infallible document, that it could be amended as needed over time. I think that the document has served us well in the main, and it has been a good move after a long struggle. I think the first time there was a vote by the people was 1948, in which a lot of ballots and the good old boys got the election turned around from approving a consolidation then to it being defeated. I think I could give a recent example. The trouble is I might have agreed with the administrator's decision that was made, but it was the commission's decision to make. And I think there needs to be an accountability of the administrator to each and every commissioner that's elected. Now, I don't think you got to like every commissioner, and I'm sure that our previous administrator had a number during his tenure that he didn't care for. But that person matters the same as the one that you consider your ally. Now, my proposal would be that 8 votes of the commission would be sufficient to terminate the contract of the administrator. It's a pretty heavy burden to reach. And there are a number of arguments why you could do it anyway. I suppose we could go through the gymnastics as a commission if 8 of us wanted to do it, that we could, make life hard on the mayor until he capitulated, or we could cut off budget funds for a good proposal to teach him a lesson, and do those kinds of theatrics that you see in the State House or in Congress. But we should not be required to make those kind of decisions if 8 people have lost confidence in the administrator. This is the time to do this if we're going to do this. We have a new administrator. He was not unaware that this issue was out there. It's been out there since before Mr. Hayes retired. It was discussed at a strategic retreat at the Piper Community Center. So it's not, in my mind, a earth-shaking change, but it does send a message that as the commissioners, whoever sits here, whether I'm here one term or more, that commissioner that sits in this seat is entitled to get an answer from the administrator when they pose a question, and not one 6 months later. So my attitude is that the only way to do that. Now, I would not agree to a 6-vote burden. Then politics comes into play. But 10 votes, and you still can't terminate the administrator, you'll never convince me that that's right. And I do not want to make a mockery of the decisions we make in order to force a decision that we should be able to make. Certainly 10 of us ought to be able to vote and get rid of an administrator if there are facts that justify it, if the person has lost our confidence. So that's the only change I had in it. I really pretty well satisfied with the rest of it.
Commissioner Kane.
Well, I agree partly with Mr. Walker. I think 8's too much. Maybe 6 isn't enough. Maybe 7's the magic number. But I can tell you before that, and this is no joke, you know, by default or whatever you want to call it, I'm the senior commissioner. And there have been some commissioners in the past that perhaps got more than some of the other commissioners did, because they're a little tighter to the mayor or something. And
Point of order.
No, point of order.
No, I wasn't talking to you, sir. I was talking to the ones laughing. Not that you have every right to say whatever you want. I just have asked the folks in the audience, and I think the dais should model that, of being respectful.
Okay. But here's the deal, and Doug is new, and I wanted this charter changed ever since I got here, to get it where the mayor doesn't have total control. And I'm not saying that Mark's doing a bad job. I'm just saying that if 7 or 8 of us say, hey, this isn't working, that we need to do something. And he said, I think you said if the majority of you would do it, well, if you're not here, it ought to be in writing for the next person.
Again, I've said repeatedly, just keep electing me mayor and everything's going to be fine.
All right, right. But and here's something else. You know, if a commissioner wants to put something on the agenda, they should be able to put it on the agenda. You know, and let the commission say yes or no. Not the mayor or the administrator say, I don't want to put that one on there. That might cause a little trouble. So what I'm saying is if a commissioner wants something put on there, let him put on there, let the commission vote on it. Not let the mayor or the administrator or somebody say, well, you know, we don't want to make it look like we give in or we didn't give in. And that's as open as it can get. Because I have yet to find something I want to bring up, but I think it at least under the agenda part. But if I wanted to bring up something, I would want to, and I wouldn't want to say, hey, Mayor, and he goes, let me think about it for a month or two. Not that you would.
Commissioner Walters.
This is a topic that came up when you appointed 3 of us to look into the commissioner liaison position. And one of the things that we had a general brainstorming session about was talking about how commissioners could be more effective in what they do and how they can accomplish what they either wanted to accomplish for their district or wanted to accomplish in response to the people in their district. So to be more specific about what Commissioner Kane said, we looked at section 513 of the charter, and it specifically is labeled Commissioner's Agenda. The charter already identifies that in each meeting we have an agenda topic called Commissioner's Agenda. And I think the best way to accomplish what we wanted to accomplish, or we thought would be helpful to the commissioners, is to rewrite the very first sentence to say the commissioner's agenda shall be prepared by the administrator and at the direction of either the commission or an individual commissioner. That would allow a commissioner or the commission as an entire body to place an agenda topic on the next board meeting agenda.
Can you read what it currently says for the public's benefit?
I think it says the commissioner's agenda shall be prepared by the administrator, subject to approval by the mayor, and at the direction of either the commission or an individual commissioner. And I wasn't around when they wrote that charter topic, but it almost sounds like the mayor has veto authority on any item prior to it even being heard by the public. So I don't know what fostered that opinion or that direction, but it seems out of place to me in this realm of open government. Thank you.
Commissioner Murguia.
Thanks, Mayor. I just add, I agree with everything Commissioner Kane and Commissioner Walters has said. I disagree with Commissioner Walker on the 6-vote deal. We live in America. It's a democracy. Majority wins, whether we like it or not. It's the way it goes. And also, according to our commission, according to our charter, I do believe the mayor has the right to veto stuff. So I don't think anybody's saying they want to take the mayor's veto power away. I think they're just saying let the items come up on the agenda, let the vote roll, see where it lies, and if it's unacceptable, veto it. There's a process. It's easy. It's respectful. It allows everyone to be heard. But if commissioners are going to run for office, work hard at that, win, and sit up here and then not be allowed to put items on the agenda, then I would suggest we just do away with commissions and we have a one-man show that runs the entire unified government. It'd be real efficient, and you wouldn't have to mess around with everybody else, and you could just move forward. But I think it's smoke and mirrors when people in the public vote people into office and they think that they have this level of authority that they don't have. So I just want it to be clear. So either we do have authority or we don't have authority, and I just want the rules to be clear. I'm okay, really, honestly, with either, because I would rather not sit up here if I'm just going to be a bobblehead or a figurehead and nod my head for somebody else and what they want to do. So that's all I have.
Commissioner Maddox.
Thank you. We had prior conversation earlier today, and it was mentioned that some newspaper writer called us a commission of activists. And just sitting here listening today is pretty interesting. I'll say this, I'm looking forward to the day to sit on the commission where we actually work together. We do work together, but when we put agendas together that represent the community. I do remember going back to October of 2013 when we had our strategic planning, and we balled up about 7 or 8 different things that we wanted to bring forward. And then we deemed some of those more important and some least important. And then we moved forward, and it was brought in a special sessions meeting, I believe, where we had this outline that didn't really fit the priorities that the commissioners had picked at the strategic planning. And I started to think to myself, was going to the strategic planning important at all? Because after we had sat there for about 7 or 8 hours, and we had spoke about the things that were priorities that we wanted to address as a commission, then as we moved forward to that special session, some of those things were put on the back burner. And so I do understand what my fellow commissioners are speaking about today, and I just hope that we will get to a point to where we prioritize around the elected officials that were put in office, and that we all work together with the mayor to have a transparent government to the voters. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else like to speak? All right. Both the item of termination of the administrator and the commissioner's agenda are items that are in the charter. And Mr. Walker is correct, it does take 8 votes to change the charter. I believe that these are not small changes to the charter or inconsequential. These are fundamental changes from my view of the form of government that was adopted by the people. It's a lot, our charter is our constitution. And these are pretty fundamental components of our form of government. If you look out there across the cities, across this country, there are largely two forms of government. There's a strong mayor and a weak mayor. In a true strong mayor form of government, the mayor not only hires the administrator and is the sole person appointed to do so, but also hires the department heads, police chief, fire chief, public works. All of those are direct hires by the mayor and are accountable directly to the mayor as part of their cabinet. It's not dissimilar to how a governor runs the governor's cabinet at the state level. And so most of the cities that have a strong mayor form of government are larger cities. Most cities, and most because most cities are smaller, have what's called a weak mayor form of government, where the mayor serves as a presiding officer in the government, but doesn't have any unique authority, whether it's veto, setting the agenda, or hiring or firing the administrator. And so in a weak mayor form of government, and Kansas City, Missouri just went through this. The Mayor James lobbied to have the form of government changed because Kansas City, Missouri is one of the few cities of that size that still has a weak mayor form of government, and he had lobbied for a change in their charter that would allow a stronger mayor. Wyandotte County actually is a hybrid. We're not really a strong mayor, we're not a weak mayor form of government. And the differences lie in these areas. A weak mayor does not have veto authority, a strong mayor does. So that's one difference. The other is the setting of the agenda. A weak mayor does not have that same authority. And termination of the administrator. We're a hybrid because while I am called for in the charter to recruit and interview and hire the administrator, it's subject to a majority vote by the commission. And that process is built in as a check and balance. And that's why if our citizens had wanted a true strong mayor form of government, they would have given that entire responsibility to the mayor without the commission's vote. And they would have also given the hiring of all the other department heads to the mayor without the commission's vote. But in fact, with our hybrid form of government, I appoint and then the commission has to ratify that appointment or it doesn't move forward. And so my decision on the recent administrator hire was I wanted to include the commissioners in the process, included the commissioners in the selection of the search firm, included the commissioners in the interviews of the final candidates, and had extensive conversations with that. It was a good collaborative effort, I felt like, under our charter, and it resulted in a unanimous vote for Mr. Bach. I think that it's one thing if there's a difficulty with the implementation. I would also say there's nothing that's been brought forward by the commissioners that I've not placed on an agenda. I've placed everything on an agenda. I have, because I'm up here full time, I do work with the staff to see when we can track those things. The first quarter, I put everything that was relevant to the budget in the first quarter discussions and added commission meetings to accommodate that. And this discussion was one that was not budget related, and so I pushed it out until the beginning of the second quarter, which is why we're here today. So in terms of whether or not we're going to have a strong mayor or a weak mayor form of government, this is not a small decision. This is fundamental to the way the unified government was structured and the intent of the people when this form of government was voted upon. I do agree democracy wins, and the people voted, and that vote has been the foundation for our unified government. And I would say I've not met anyone in the public who has said our government's not working well. I've not heard people say that we've not had great success in the unified government since 1997. Really an unprecedented success in terms of the economic development. We had over $1 billion of economic development last year in Wyandotte County. In part, it's because of the structure of our government. We don't have the city and county bickering with one another. We have a single decision-making body, and we have a form of government that has been consistent and strong. And I think the hallmark of that has been the consistency of leadership. I don't see how these issues are affecting the delivery of service in our community. I don't know how these address customer service. I think these are issues that are fundamental. And I believe this charter was established by the people, voted on by the people. And these are not minor changes. These are significant changes. So I am of the mind to state the vernacular. If it ain't broken, don't fix it. If we have had a model success in our community for urban communities across this country, I would say the form of government we have has been strong, and I would say it has been successful. And so I certainly would not support this. And I would ask any of the commissioners, I mean, and Hal Walker, you and I have talked about this. If you were sitting in my chair, would you support these changes?
Of course not.
So I think that's the issue.
But
now-
for a little different reasons than you
Well,
stated.
perhaps. So I think the issue, though, is, and that was the conversation I just had with Commissioner Walker. But the issue is, these are fundamental changes to our form of government. It's a check and balance that the people of the city said they wanted, and they've continued to elect to this strength of mayor. It's a hybrid. It's not a true strong mayor. It's not a weak mayor. And it's a unique and amazingly effective form of government. So I certainly would not support these changes moving forward. Commissioner Kane.
Thank you, Mayor. And you are the mayor. There's no doubt about that. But what it's, and you did a really good job of explaining yourself. I mean, if I sat out there, I might believe it. But what you're saying to me is, as long as you get what you want, it's okay. But if we want something else and you don't want it, well, then it's not going to happen, is what I feel like. And, you know, it's even like when we were voting on the at-large commissioners deal. You know, we had a golden opportunity to fill the seat, and he said, well, no, I'm not going to do it. And in my mind, right now you're saying, yep, I hear everything you folks are saying, but at the end of the day, I'm the man. And that is not right. That message that you're trying to send is it's not broke, don't fix it. Well, I think it is broke, and I think it needs to be fixed. And if I was sitting in your chair, I would do it, because I want the people to know that the entire decision didn't come from one person. It came from the entire group. And when the entire group speaks, it speaks volumes. But when only one person has control over what hits the table, or what we can vote on, or what we can talk about, that's not transparent. What that is I'm the king of the sandbox, I've got the gavel, and you, Commissioner Kane, out there in District 5, you've got no control because I have control, and I really don't like that.
If I'm not mistaken, I'm certain there are provisions for the commissioners to place items on the agenda.
You just said it a little while ago when Ann said that you take that under consideration, and the way I felt that what you took was, I'm not going to put it on there.
I did not say that.
Well, the way it came out to me, or at least the way I felt, you know, and I've never asked you to put something on the agenda, but if I do, I'm going to lobby like you can't believe. But Mark, if the commissioners feel strong enough that they want something there, then let the rest of us say, hey, this isn't going to work, and let it go down in flames. But by you saying that, and you're right, it's a strong mayor position. There's no doubt. But here's the deal. Aren't we supposed to be a strong commission? We're only as strong as the weakest person up here. And if we don't all strive to work together and not have one person pick what you want to talk about today and not pick what you want to talk about tomorrow, that's the wrong message.
Commissioner Markley.
Mayor, I would be interested to have legal review our charter to see whether there is an avenue to get something on the agenda without mayor approval, but my interpretation from reading it myself is that every avenue available has the option from the mayor to disapprove the added item. Obviously, if there is an avenue for us to get things on the agenda, this discussion is moot. We're happy to do it that way, but that just, as far as I can tell, is not the case.
All right. Okay. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Commissioner Murguia.
Mayor, I gotta say this. Listen, since you've been mayor, things have gone really well, surprisingly to me, between the two of us. I'm just gonna say it. And I think things are going very well with this commission. I think some of us have had some hiccups, some of us have not, but in general, we've worked all really well together. I just hope, I mean, Mayor, I think you know better than anybody that this group of people up here want good things for Wyandotte County, and we're all ethical people. We want to do the right thing. We make mistakes sometimes, but I think we all try to get back on the right track. And I just have to say out loud, I hope you're not doing this because of former politicians sitting in the crowd. And I hope you're not being controlled by other people. I hope that's not happening. Because
Well, I would
think
say
that,
that's a
let
little
me just-
patronizing to suggest
let
that
me-
might be true.
well, it's just odd because I didn't know you well for a long time, and I've gotten to know you well in this last year. And I will say publicly, you do strike me as a man of integrity and a man that's courageous. I heard that a lot over the campaign trail, that you're a courageous man and that it shouldn't always be about politics. It should be about being courageous and doing the right thing. And you know, I don't say this very often. Kane will probably fall off his chair. But that's the most eloquent I've ever heard Mike Kane speak in the 7 years I've been up here. I mean, you talk about speaking from the bottom of your heart. I mean, he's just saying, we're all doing a good thing up here. We all want good things to happen all over Wyandotte County. I mean, that's the most genuine I've ever heard the guy. And I don't think anybody up here is trying to do anything to you, take your power away, whatever. Nobody's asking to remove a veto. We're just asking to be heard. So I mean this sincerely. I feel like we have a good working relationship. I don't want it to change over minor changes. And I do think they're minor. The power still lies with you. And I respect that. I have a great deal of respect for that. All we're asking is to be heard and let the vote roll. That's it.
Anyone else? All right. I see no one else moving to speak on this issue. So the issue, we have the ethics before us, and we have forwarded this meeting copy to the legislative auditor for review on a number of items, and I expect we'll hear back from them. Commissioner Maddox.
Thank you. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I'd like to add to that list that goes to the legislative auditor, to add in there the time that a censor is on the website. I was told that there is currently no time period spoken of in the current ethics code, that when commissioners are censored as to how long it would stay on the website. So I'd like that added to the list of things that go to the county auditor.
Okay.
And I'd like to have us look closer into when an ethics administrator has the power to investigate and possibly issue a censor to the public as proven documents. I'd like to see that person be a proven investigator, have some kind of certificate of some sort that qualifies them to actually investigate something and present it as facts.
Okay, that is in the record. It will be forwarded to the legislative auditor. All right, so that concludes the discussion on the ethics and the charter. I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight, and I want to thank the commissioners for requesting that this get placed on the agenda, and for the opportunity for everyone to air your concerns in a public forum. So thank you. We have one other agenda item right now that I'm actually going to defer. It is 10 till 7. We have a 7 o'clock meeting. Both the next agenda item and the executive session are not time sensitive. They can be postponed until after the 7 o'clock meeting. And so I will handle the Healthy Campus piece as an announcement at the end of the 7 o'clock meeting, and we'll have the executive session then immediately after that, and that will close out the public session. We can go upstairs. I understand it's a brief executive session, so we can handle it in due course. What I am going to do is call for a 10-minute recess until our 7 o'clock meeting. This 5 o'clock session is adjourned.